Greetings. In this video, I want to explain what a food desert is, some brief background behind it, and some solutions to food deserts. Now, a food desert is defined as an area that has very limited access to healthy, affordable food. 7% of Americans live in what is defined as a food desert. That's upwards of 23 million people. Now, the origins of food deserts are complex and multifaceted, and that's what I want to examine in this video. Now, if we examine the maps that I put on the screen, we can see that the area of Appalachia is a hotspot. This would mainly be centered in the state of West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, Eastern Tennessee, Western Virginia, and Western North Carolina. Now, according to economic research on the existence of food deserts, a lot of the reasons are free market driven, meaning that it wasn't economically viable for a grocery store to be open there, or else they wouldn't be profitable and they would close. According to research reported in the Quarterly Journal of Economics, the economics journal that has the highest impact factor, exposing low-income households to the same products and prices available to high-income households reduces nutritional inequality by only about 10%, while the remaining 90% is driven by differences in demand. A lot of Appalachia is extremely poor, mainly due to the effects of globalization. So that basically what that means is the industries that were previously in the region, like coal mining and textile manufacturing, disappeared, and the job market vanished and went out of America's borders. After this, many families were left destitute with no income. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to afford to buy food from a grocery store or anywhere else for that matter. The government's response was a heavy subsidizing of food programs where the government would provide food to these families. There's a term called government cheese, where you might think that this means welfare in the form of money from the government, but in reality, there's literal cheese that the government ships to families in these backwater regions of America that were left behind by globalization and didn't benefit from globalization like the coastal states did. The program nowadays is the Emergency Food Assistance Program, TFAP, which distributes all types of food, but famously a 2-pound block of cheese every month. The program's distribution isn't uniform across all states. It takes into account the number of low-income individuals in a state and the state's unemployment level. So as you may think, areas that are also food deserts might be overly dependent on these food airdrops from the government. And because there's food coming in from the government, there's no need to go out and buy your own food, which makes it so that grocery stores aren't even open in that region. Additionally, there may not be an effort to move out to a more economically prosperous region, as it risks losing the government benefits that you can live on, as well as a general lack of resources needed to move away in the first place. According to a recent study, on the average block with predominantly black residents, the closest grocery store is twice as far away as the nearest fast food restaurant. Now, this is significant because a lot of regions shown on the map overlap with a historical region in America known as the Black Belt, which historically had a lot of fertile black soil and was the center of the cotton plantations that profited off slavery. And so even after the slavery system ended, the regions were still heavily populated by African Americans and thus became known as the Black Belt. Now, one part of this region is the Mississippi Delta region. The USDA found that out of the entire country, Mississippi had the highest percentage of its population living in low-income, low-access area. The issue is perhaps most acute in the rural Mississippi Delta region, where counties average one supermarket per 190 square miles. This is a region in the western portion of the U.S. state of Mississippi, right along the east bank of the Mississippi River. It is often described as the most southern place on earth, not just because of its location in the American South, but as an epicenter of America's most impoverished counties and historical difficulties. The most defining characteristic of the Delta region is an extreme level of poverty that has passed down through multiple generations. Many of America's poorest counties are in the region, and it isn't uncommon for counties to have poverty rates of 30 to 40%, double the nation's average. Child poverty rates exceed 50-60%. Before and after the American Civil War, which started in 1860, the economy of the region was centered upon plantations, which used slaves, and later the sharecropping system, respectively. Later, as the mechanization of the cotton industry ensued, hundreds of thousands of manual labor jobs were eliminated, triggering an economic collapse in the region. that the region never recovered from. In areas like these, where the population is too poor to be able to buy food, it makes sense that a grocery store wouldn't even be able to open because it would not be profitable. Now, this issue is important because even though it may just seem like data on a map, these are real people that live in these conditions every day. People's lives are heavily dictated by the food they eat. If people don't eat enough or not healthy enough food, then that definitely affects their productivity and how they go about life. Solutions. Now, the problem with solutions to this issue are that because it is market driven, if an area doesn't have a steady enough economic base, in the sense that there aren't enough jobs in the region, then there also won't be enough spending power by the people that live in these regions to be able to buy enough food from the supermarket so that the supermarket stays open on itself. And so this is basically a cycle of poverty in which because people can't afford food, the supermarket won't be able to stay open, and so then they can't get healthy food, and so they stay malnutrition, and that hurts them even more from being able to escape that situation.